awesome. So, thank you so much for your time. I don't take it for granted, especially after a busy day that you're just here,
Yes.
just talk
Mm.
to us in regards to finances. So I know that just so that people know who you are, um, I'll just introduce you and then you can, fill in the gaps. All right, Mr. Jordache Wilson. It's just such a pleasure to just have this conversation with you. Thank you for your time. Do not take it for granted. Just really want to get into it. So I want to first introduce you to the people, let them know who I'm speaking to. I know that you have, well, Mr. Jordache Wilson of JW Solutions. We had an
Yes.
encounter where I was in a situation with my business and you were personally recommended by one of my mentors and you definitely helped me through the situation. And you essentially became a teacher, just showing us, hey, this is what you've been doing wrong with your business, shedding light on the situation, and then guiding me through and even doing that to this day. And so I just want to say I appreciate you for that, for the continued guidance. Um, and you're joining me today in regard just to speak about finances, especially as it regards physicians. I know that, as a doctor, it's definitely, I've never been taught like finances. The first thing about finance is when I went to orientation as an intern, and a certain bank came up to us and said, hey, we're offering loans for cars and houses. Would you like to sign up? And there was no real introduction in terms of this is what you need to get. This is how you need to get started in being responsible with your profession and your career. And so it was always just trying to figure it out between the long nights, between the long hours, seeing patients, and always going paycheck to paycheck, you know? So I really just want to get into it and actually just first let you introduce yourself, because you're a great mind. And I just want the people to hear, who you are.
Oh, very much. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. So, JW Solutions came out about from a need to educate people about money management, right? What you notice is that you don't know what you don't know. And because of that, a lot of people engage into business and expect that once money is coming in and they pay the bills, everything is supposed to be okay, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they forgot about the obligation to government, the compliance aspect, managing cash flow. How do you invest for growth? How do you track? How do you ensure that you analyze your spikes and your swells and when to invest and when not to invest and when to spend, not to spend? All of that comes in out of practice, out of structure, and out of an understanding appreciation for the accounting, right? So JW step in when we realized that what the day-to-day accountant did was just take your numbers, put it in a spreadsheet, and give you the compliance authorities. You didn't know where money was going. You didn't know what they were doing. All right. So we're here to fill the gap between what is required from you on a day-to-day basis, on a quarterly basis, on a month-end basis, and to understand how to make the business work for you. Yeah.
I get you. I appreciate that. And I appreciate the work that you're doing. So I wanted to just go straight ahead and address the elephant in the room.
Mm.
In my profession as a physician, oftentimes I find myself living paycheck to paycheck. All right, in the first year, I just starting out. Cool. Second year, third year, fourth year, and then there's no real change. So I wanted to know why is it that so many high earning professionals are considered, well, subjectively high paid professionals like ourselves, physicians, are still stuck in this trap and still feel broke at the end of the day.
Yeah. So one of the big things is that doctors they find themselves in a safe profession, right? It is The demand is there. No care how saturated it is, there's always a need for a doctor. There's always a need to specialize. There's always a need to understand how to do it better, how to save life. So there's a need, right? But every
Mm-hmm.
day you go to work, you clock in and you clock out. When your hours finish, you go home. You don't need to do anything outside of that. You don't negotiate the rates. You don't decide when to invest. If the machine breaks down, you just don't work. If somebody gets sick, which they always will, you just do your hours and you go home, right? There is very little that is required of you in terms of risk. But when you have your own business, when you get paid and have to invest for growth, you realize that a lot more is required. If I ask a doctor how much they pay for PAY, how much they pay for NIS, they probably can't tell you. They can't tell you how much they calculate in taxes, right?
Right.
They don't
Mm-hmm.
know because
Mm-hmm.
it's done at source. But then when you get into your own business and you realize you have full control of the success or failure of a business, you realize that yes, there's a lot more control, but there's a lot more risk, right? And
Mm-hmm.
therefore, you find yourself in a situation where if you don't manage it properly, it can end in disaster. So what your high income used to give you will now require you to do a lot more, right? So the income turns expense, the assets turns liability, and then you find yourself in a deficit, right? So then what we call hand to mouth becomes what it
Mm-hmm.
is, right? So you buy a big car and you spend a lot of money maintaining it, right?
Mm-hmm.
You buy a house and you spend a lot of money maintaining it. You're not sure how to use these assets to get the best of it, to make more from it, right? To make sure that the government themselves don't take your income or your assets from you.
I respect that, and I agree with you because you open by saying you help people who don't know what they don't know, and if I'm being very honest and vulnerable, when it came to my payslip, some of the things you just look at the bottom number, just look at what you're
Yes,
getting. You don't
yes,
look at the
that's it.
rest,
You don't
and
care. Yeah.
then sometimes even if it is that they made a mistake, I wouldn't know.
You wouldn't know. Yes,
I
yes,
wouldn't
yeah.
know. And so I definitely agree in regards to not treating the profession like a business. Because
Mhm.
I remember even when I started out as a physician, one of my seniors who I was explaining, hey, I want to start a business. I feel like I'm not making enough.
Mhm.
What he was saying to me is, hey, just, and this was when I was in medical school. He said, yo, just finish medicine. Don't focus on the business part. Just make sure say you're getting money. And then when you
Mhm.
make it in your career, like when you start making a certain amount of money, then you can establish the business. But what I fail to understand is day one, I'm my own director, my own manager.
Correct. Correct.
And so I needed to understand what's going on with my monies because I am my own business. Yes, I
Mhm.
am employed to the hospital or the clinic, but essentially I am my own agent, right? And they're outsourcing my services.
Right. Exactly.
So
Exactly.
so I definitely agree. But one of the questions that come to mind now is, you know, just reflecting and based upon your experience, what is one of the biggest mistakes that you think doctors make out of all the mistakes that we do make? What
Mhm.
is one of the biggest mistakes that you think we make in our approach?
I think one of the biggest one is not knowing how money works. And let me explain.
Mm.
As you said, at the end of the month, you get your salary, right? And your
Mm-hmm.
salary is yours. You decide what you want to do from it. If you decide
Mm-hmm.
not to spend it, you go to work every day, you probably get lunch, you get uniform. So outside of your work expense, you're free to do whatever. I realize a lot of doctors, if you're on residency, you're on hall, or you're in some form of dorm, so you realize that your ability to manage money doesn't affect your day-to-day running. When you operate your own business, where do your money come from? When a patient come in, they have a health card and they swipe the health
Mm-hmm.
card. When do you get that money?
At the end of the month,
At the end of the month. But you have
right?
bills to pay. right?
Mm-hmm.
When you come in and you're, say you have an assistant or secretary or whatever, they get paid fortnightly. Where do you get the money
Mm-hmm.
from to pay them? From your
I
own
guess
pocket.
upfront costs,
So
right?
you find out that you have to pay 2 weeks or 4 weeks before you get that money from the insurance company. And if there is some form of debate or issue, that takes longer, right? You also have
Mm-hmm.
to have the equipment and the relevant compliance documents to make sure that you can call it the relevant information, you can verify it, and you can send it over. So when I say make money work for you, you have to understand a lot of time you have to pay money up front and then get reimbursed afterwards. That cash flow differential sometimes is what put people in deficit, right? Because you always have to be running down to catch up, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then now the gap widens when you started to try to make a business more visible. You put stuff in marketing, you put stuff in big equipment, and when the equipment fails, what happens? Right? You now have to invest more. How do you account for that in the books? How do you get
Mm-hmm.
compensation or relief from government? Right? So understanding how money works can be the deciding factor between you being paycheck to paycheck or deficit to deficit or investing ahead to ensure that you have reoccurring cash flows to pay your bills and to reinvest in the company.
I get you. So I guess just piggybacking off of that, how do we make money work?
All
How
right,
do we
good.
shift from paycheck to paycheck to know understanding and approaching money the right way? What is the right
Mhm.
approach?
All right, so great question. So there is this idea in the business world that don't spend your money, spend the bank money, but
Mm-hmm.
ensure that the money that you borrow, when you reinvest, you make more than the interest, right? So a lot of people, their startup costs, they take it from the bank and they say the bank is giving you at 15% interest. The service at your cost or the product at your cost should come at a higher markup. So you're going to reinvest it at a 30%, 40% to ensure that when you pay back the bank at the end of the month, that 15%, you're making 35%, and then you have 10% to play with to pay off your bills and an extra 5% you're pocketing, right? So
Mm-hmm.
investing ahead, ensuring that you understand how to cost your product or services, and ensure that when you pay off your bills, pay the bank amount, you are left with a surplus.
So
Follow me?
are you saying that money work, you have to have strategy in regards to money,
Correct, correct.
essentially?
Right?
Um,
And
I
that's the
guess
difference
so.
between what
Mhm.
doctors do now, where they just wait until the month end, they get the pay, and they spend it. That's it, you know? It's a totally different
We
strategy.
that is
Right?
exactly what
And
happened.
yeah. And then, if you just feel like spending time on like a surplus, you put it aside and you make it grow and you feel like that is fine. But it's a totally different strategy.
And I know that we're on the topic of strategy. But in regards to just organizing our minds and ourselves now, like in regards to approaching it the right way, what should we do differently? What's the best? So somebody listening to this now, right, and saying, okay, I am aware that I do not know where my money is going.
Mm.
I'm aware that, and I guess the first step is awareness. The first step in order to create a strategy is knowing where you are and where you want to be, and knowing what steps we need to take to get there. But again, we don't know what we don't know.
You do
So,
not
what would be
correct.
the first step to making things right? Going towards
Mhm.
approaching money the right way.
Right. So my first step is get some guidance, right?
Mm,
Get somebody who
mm,
knows how to manage money, who know to manage account, to first walk you through that initial first step. understand
Mm-hmm.
where your money is, understand where it needs to go, and therefore better able to set you up for success. You don't have to go it alone, right? Doctors tend to ride on their own name. They tend to go off their own reputation. You don't have to do it alone. Yeah. So the first thing is sit down with a qualified accountant or somebody who is serving business just to understand your business, your finances, and your money, right? The other thing is that
Mm-hmm.
understanding the business is yours. You decide what direction that you want to go in. So therefore, have a healthy and constructive communication about the future of your business, of your finances. Don't let them say, go down this road, make this. No. Everybody has their own path and their own direction, but you decide where you want to go. You should have an input and can only make that decision if you understand where you are and where you need to go. All right? From there,
Mm-hmm.
you just have the person guide you along the way. Take your risks, make a mistake, but ensure there's some amount of safe zone that you're playing in.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I get you. Um, I guess one thing that it is very surprising to me is that as a student, as a medical officer, intern, senior house officer, none of this was ever taught. And like, if it is that I recall, just looking at my seniors, um, they're always living a fast-paced life where even the consultants, they're at the hospital, but after the hospital, they're at their offices, right?
Right.
Or at different service, or consulting at two different hospitals, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when I look at it, I'm seeing where there's so much time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then a lot of people are saying, "Oh, doctors get paid so much," but they don't
Yes.
realize that there's so much time that goes into it. And if you think about it, where do you get time to spend all that money? And
Mm-hmm.
then because you're managing it so poorly, by the time you quit it, gone,
Right. Correct.
right?
Correct.
And
Correct.
you're
Yeah.
stuck in this
A
perpetual
cycle.
cycle.
And trying to make it
Um,
back, trying to hunt it down.
right. So I guess yes, even if it is that we get answers in terms of the right steps, what how do we develop this new mindset? Um, in terms of seeing money the way that you have described it, or what mindset do, how do we go from paycheck to paycheck to first get in the mindset in order to move forward? Is it that we, yes, mentorship, do we start reading books even though we don't have the time? Do we listen to
Yes.
podcasts? Where do we go to source this information?
Right. So a lot of this is out. If you didn't go to school for it, is out of experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not telling you to go and make the big investment and lose it all and then start over. No. A lot of people work by trying and failing, but it doesn't have to be like that. So what a lot of people do is they partner with people who have better money management. Yeah. So you
Right.
are the doctor, you know how to deal with patients, you stick to that. You get a partner that is good at money management and they manage that,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
That's one way. So then you're not taking the financial risk up front. You trust somebody who is better able to do that. But notwithstanding that, still have the conversation as to the progress and the process. What are they doing different? What are the reports saying? How are we
Mm-hmm.
making money? Is it a location issue? Is there seasonality around demand? Do we need to market a certain way? Do I need to use my name or somebody else's name? Do I need to use a certain type of disease or illness as a buzzword? Right? So if I say Dr. Notice versus Dr. Diabetes, will that get me more patients? Right?
Mm-hmm.
How do we look at, do we deal with reoccurring? Do I have the time to invest in this particular business, or my time is better placed at somewhere else and I just recommend other doctors who I can pay cheaper, right? It's business,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you look at the cheapest way to provide quality service. So then your time now may be valuable for you to review and certain patients that are high value is the one you see.
Mm-hmm.
But then you get other doctors that may see more let me call it less severe cases, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a certain season where it's just influenza, you just give little a pill or a shot. You have a doctor that does that. But there are seasons where there are serious illnesses, and you come and see that. Understanding, doing data analytics, what time do the more serious patients come in? Right? If in the morning you realize that only people with flu or smaller children come in, as against in the evening when you have more severe cases of disease, and those are the time that you come in. So having somebody go through your business, give you some recommendation and strategy how to maximize your time, maximize the output, and maximize the financial input of the business will aid that, right? Then, of course, you want somebody to help with money management. So now you have looked at the revenue structure. What about the cost structure? How can I deliver value at a lesser cost, right? A lot of doctor buildings you look at, they're very rundown because it's a one-time cleanup and they just let it stay there, right? They don't know
Mm-hmm.
how to repair and maintain and carry more people in. What is the maximum capacity that you can manage? Um, when you look at the staff, right? Some doctors, they have a lot of people doing the filing and the manual work and the moving. What if I put in a machine or a scanner? What would that give me in terms of reliability and cutting costs? Right? Those are some of the things they need to look into and invest in, and to see whether or not how you can deliver more value at a smaller cost. Yeah.
I get you. So what I'm hearing is that we need to, seeing that we weren't taught these things, we need to use the leverage, and we need to leverage the expertise of persons who have mastery in what we need help with in terms of
Correct.
whether it's accounting, whether it's marketing, copywriting, or product, whether it's an office or another
Mm.
side business. We need somebody who is skilled in the field, and I definitely agree with that. One thing that I definitely, even when I was doing different businesses, in med school, I used to sell snacks at the back of,
Mm-hmm.
class.
Yes.
Used to have a little shop. Oh, not a little shop, well, a restaurant.
Mm.
Put respect on my thing. A little
Yes.
restaurant where we used to sell pizza and slushes and,
Yeah.
just a try a thing. One thing I definitely appreciated was different skill set, different talent, and we came together and we made something based upon the different specialties and characteristics of each unique individual. And I think when it comes down to partnership and collaboration, we definitely need to do that more. Cause it's
Mm.
funny, in the hospital, we have different teams dealing with different with one patient, right?
Right.
So, for example, if it is that somebody came in with a stroke, the doctor for medicine would come. If it is that, then we need to refer them to a neurologist or a neurosurgeon based upon what is causing it, right? And then even after treatment, we have somebody who comes in. We have the dietitian coming, right, to change diet. We have the physiotherapist coming, helping with recovery, and then an outside doctor where they can probably go to the clinic to kind of, work up and check up
Mm. Of
everything
course.
else.
Yeah.
And we have this system leveraging different expertise and different personnel in different areas. But when it comes to business, we don't think about that. We just say, "Oh,
Right.
I want to be the
I
best.
need to
Let
do
me hoard
everything.
everything."
Yes.
You get
Yes.
me?
Yes.
So I definitely appreciate what when you say leveraging the help of others, because 100% of $100. But if I get 10% of a million, you get me? I say
Mm.
that is a big
Thank you.
amount,
Well said.
right?
Well said. Spoken
So
like a true accountant.
yeah, I learning from the best,
Yes.
learning from the best. So I definitely understand that, and I know and that's why even though like as we have this discussion, that's why partnering with persons like yourself in terms of business with JW Solution, I think is important. And I'll definitely let the people them know, leaving your information so they can get in touch with you because you definitely been a good help for me. But I do have one more question for you. Like, for the person listening to this webinar saying, this sounds all well and dandy, but I just don't have the time, what would be your advice to them?
All right. So within the business world, you find out that the business works whether or not you're working. Yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
technology steps in. You have person that outsourcing. You have persons that are have augmented services, complemented services. So essentially what I'm saying is that you don't have to go it on, you don't have to take it on yourself. You just have to have the the need to. Yeah, you just have to have the drive, you just have to have a problem to fix. Right? So even if you yourself cannot sit down and absorb it, even if you yourself cannot work out the maths and to say what I need to do, you have a certain skill that you can monetize. And therefore, it is essential for you to realize that you really just need to take the first step. Right? You just need to put yourself in the situation to understand what's the next step I need to take. And that next step means I need to connect with somebody like JW Solution, or
Mm-hmm.
I need to outsource to somebody else where I can say, all right, this is what my time is worth and this is what I'm going to value it. Or I need to just sit down, map out a process, flip a switch and say, all right, go forth and let it happen. Right? So there are different ways to make income. You just need to have the need and the drive and the interest. Yeah.
Correct.
Similar to your business that you had in back in med school, if you could take a step back and do it differently, you would have seen so many ways you can make more money.
Mm-hmm.
You could have expanded, and maybe you wouldn't have bothered become a doctor. You know,
I get
but
you.
that's the truth of it. The level of education that we get just by taking a step back and look, right? Just by analyzing the situation and realize that I don't have to take this on by myself. I don't have to be sitting in this office every day, rushing from one spot to the next. If we take a
Mm.
step back and just analyze where we need to be, and then say to someone, how do I get there? Yeah, I don't know. I'm a doctor. I can do this. How do I get to this position? And then you build it as you go along.
Spoken like a true businessman and an accountant. How do I get
Yes.
there and what help do I need? Yes, I agree with you. And just wrapping up, I appreciate all that you said, especially with the topic in terms of strategy and leverage. And just for persons listening in, that's why we created the Gold State Circle, a community for physicians who want to know more about business because guess what? We were never taught, right? We're always feeling like we don't have the time, and all we need to do is to study, not realizing that we ourselves are the business. And so it's a change of mindset. As you said, you don't know what you don't know. And so therefore, it's really bringing awareness, new perspective, new insight, and bringing persons like Jordache, Mr. Jordache Wilson here from JW Solution to us because we want to get you the help that you need, right? And so we're going to be doing more talks like these. And also, just to let the people know, you want to tell them or me must tell them?
Go
I'll go ahead and tell them.
ahead.
We're going to be having a workshop coming up where we actually dive into more strategies because guess what? We want you to be able to have the resources, the tools that you need to shift, have that mental shift, and also taking it step by step as to how can I become more in my business? How can I become more in my workplace, in my business, and even just acquiring the mindset to take that next step and want to hold their hands while doing it. So you'll be hearing more in terms of our workshop, in terms of how it is that we can apply the strategies from the expert himself, Mr. Wilson. And so just look out for that, right? And so, Mr. Wilson, I just want to thank you so much for just joining us today and just educating us on why we need to be better business person as medical professionals.
Thank you for having me.